Hello and welcome from the Croc School. Welcome to the second of our Democracy for All of Us events. We are incredibly excited to have three amazing community leaders here to talk tonight about how we strengthen democracy in San Diego. Those leaders are Mayor Alejandra Sotelo Solis, the mayor of National City. We have Francine Maxwell, the president of the NAACP branch here in San Diego. And we have Tad Parson, president and CEO of the Burnham Center for Community Advancement. Our goal tonight is to really dig in on how we create a strong, inclusive democracy in America's finest city. So I just want to jump right in to the questions for our panelists. As we begin this conversation tonight about strengthening our democracy, I'd love to hear from each of you. As you think back over the tumultuous last several years, what have you learned about our region and our democracy here in our region? Mayor, maybe you could get us started.
Well, buenas noches and bienvenidos to everyone who is watching. I am honored and humbled to be part of this panel. And I would have to say that I am starting my third year in my first term as mayor, but I served 10 years prior as a council member here. So as we talk about democracy and engagement, I was only the second woman elected back in 2008. And I'm the first woman, first Latina, first mom elected to this role in 131 years. So as we talk about engagement and really the connectedness of inviting people to engage, it really goes beyond just the age spectrum. It goes beyond the ethnicity spectrum. People have to know it's the WIFM. It's the what's in it for me, and not in a negative sense. It's that connectedness. It's knowing that government or the democracy that we believe in will serve them and their families. And I'm a proud choral alumni. After receiving my degree in political science from UC San Diego, I did the choral fellowship in public policy, whose famous alum include Senator Alex Padilla and Congressman Mike Levin. And we learned there that you have to look intrinsically as a leader and be welcoming as a leader, that you want to hear diverse perspectives, that you want to engage in all voices at the table, however controversial they are, acknowledge, value, and then make the best decision that serves your community. And I would have to say that as we talk about democracy and engagement, I would say that communities like National City, we have unfortunately been overlooked, played second fiddle. I mean, we're a 60,000 person city compared to our neighbors to the north here, the third biggest city in the state. And so I think that as we move forward, it's important that we know that as we grow in engagement, as we grow in participation, communities like mine will be boisterous, will be loud, but we'll also do it with a smile and making sure that they know that our voices will be heard because we represent the hard working class Latino, Filipino community of our county. And it's extremely important to have, again, that acknowledgement of their voices at the table to strengthen that democracy.
Thank you for that. Francine, I wonder what you would like to add. What have you learned about democracy in our region over the past several years?
Having me. What has been glaring is the lack of equal representation up and down the region. And that's been for quite a few years. People want to have people that look like them, People want to make sure that people know that their voices are important and that their voices are being heard. And so we've seen up and down across the nation, many communities that have been gerrymandered, people that have had voter suppression. And so we want to make sure that we get back to basics, and that's human rights, that's social justice, and it's just making sure that the political will, we got you there, we elected you on a promise and a wing, and they don't want to be forgotten. A lot of people work hard for other people to get elected, and then as soon as they get in the seat, they sometimes forget who put you in the seat and the basic fundamental reasons of why they put you there. And so it's very important that we look at how far we've come, but make sure that sometimes we just get back to basics.
Ted, you've really worked from a regional perspective on some of the sort of macro issues in our community. From that perspective, what have you learned as sort of from our region as a whole about our democracy over the past few years?
Yeah, I really see some promising signs, and thanks, Andy, for inviting me to be part of this panel. And I also want to give a shout out to Marjan Saulan from the Kroc School, who's a master's candidate at the Kroc School, who's kind of been my thought partner in working through some of these issues. I'm seeing some promising signs in the evolution of democracy in our region. There seems to be a recognition that our natural diversity is a regional resource. We are one of the most diverse regions in the world. City Heights, I believe, is one of the most diverse communities, sub-communities in the country, and if not in the globe. And as a region, including Tijuana, we are one of the largest metropolitan areas also in the world, and certainly one of the most diverse. And we seem to be leaning in more and more. When you look at who we're electing, the voices that are coming to the fore, there seems to be an evolution that is very promising from the left and from the right, and from diversity all the way from ideology to age, regional diversity, ethnic diversity, sexual diversity. It's really starting to show up in the forefront of democratic representation and in our culture. I'm hearing the most conservative voices starting to call for a culture of community before self, or even country before self. I'm hearing many of my friends on the left call for the same thing. So you're starting to see this merging in our community of a recognition that our diversity is a regional resource. It makes us unique and strong, and that we need to start putting community before self.
Video here in a sec, but before I do that, I want to encourage everyone from the audience to use our chat. Maybe put in the chat what you think you've learned about democracy in our region over the past several years. And please feel free to ask questions in the chat. We're going to try to get to as many of those questions as we can later in the show. So right now, enjoy this first video.
For far too long, the issue of racism has been something that has not been addressed, and especially in the healthcare system and the treatments that Black and brown folks are facing.
No justice, no peace! Addressing racism in San Diego County is long overdue, and not only is it time to talk about it, but it's time to do something about it.
Government policies created systemic racism, which created tremendous inequities, and it will take intentional government policies to change that trajectory.
Police cars roll up on 17th Street east of Petco Park. The sidewalks are a sea of tents. Officers and city workers begin making the homeless pack up and move out.
Yeah, we're not roaches or ants out here. We're human just like them. With a wall like this, it'll create more of a deterrent, and then with that comes less agents having to fill this specific area.
The truth is, walls work. The border infrastructure system works. The data shows it, and our agents know it.
Just to see that it was possible to hug, it was possible to share things with the loved ones over there. And right now, the only thing they do is just to touch each other with the tip of their finger, the pinky finger.
So Mayor Sotelo Solis and Francine, the first thing we heard in that video was healthcare. And I think the work each of you do has given you a real insight into the inequalities that our pandemic in some cases have revealed, in some cases have exacerbated. So what would you tell to our audience today about those inequalities? What does our audience need to understand about the inequalities that we're seeing as the result of the COVID pandemic? Francine, maybe you could get us started this time.
Things that have been occurring for decades were exposed because we were all still together. And so I want to go back to the murder of George Floyd. We as a nation stood still for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. This is the first time that we were all still together. There's been other videos for years, but people were still doing the hustle and bustle of their life. This unprecedented pandemic let everyone sit still and watch something and became active. Rather social economics, generational, everybody was outraged for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. So that was an awakening. We've had other awakenings, but this one, because of this unprecedented time where cities, counties were shut down because of the pandemic, people began to strategize together. People just threw caution to the wind and they began to march in the streets. And the most thing was outrage. They had peaceful protests that sometimes did turn astray, but initially people were there to tell them what Fannie Lou Hamer said. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so this was an opportunity to hear from everyone on a topic that is near and dear to them, and they're demanding change. And so we're also asking for accountability. We're asking for bold leadership throughout the nation. And so these are the things that we can build on to keep the excitement and the momentum. Never before has the world seen what they've seen. And it is time for us to listen to the unheard voices that have not been heard for decades and bring them to the table and let them express to them. A lot of people, this is the first time that they've become civically engaged, and we need to teach them what you can't fault anyone for not knowing what they don't know. So if they have a passion and they have suggestions, they need to be taught how to craft that passion and suggestion into policies and procedures and ordinances. And so that's what is really exciting about this time right now. And your video just spoke volumes to where we're at.
I think that's so fascinating that you drew the connection between the George Floyd murder and the pandemic, and that maybe we were sort of in our homes and a little quiet and ready to hear the message. I haven't heard that connection drawn before, so that's fantastic. Mayor Sotelo Solis, I know National City has been hit hard by this pandemic, so I would just love to speak to your experience, your community in confronting this pandemic.
Well, I have to echo many of the sentiments of President Maxwell. I think the fact that she spoke to the fact that there's been decades, generations of inequities, and the pandemic truly shed much brighter light on the health disparities, where many people do not have health homes, and many times throughout this past year, it was go get vaccinated at your doctor's office. Well, there are many people who do not have doctor's office because they do not have insurance. Same thing with the digital divide. We talk about the access to appointments now as the vaccine is rolling out. Well, if you don't have a computer or if you don't have working Wi-Fi, it's those additional barriers that cause more and more concern and more discrepancies with providing quality healthcare, quality access to resources that communities like mine have been facing prior to the pandemic, but have been, again, exacerbated disproportionately in our communities. And we have had to fight tooth and nail. With this new board of supervisors, it is a little easier. However, we are looking at the vaccination rates. If our elders cannot get appointments, then how do we get those appointments to them? How do we mobilize our community, our mobile unit with our firefighters to the elders? How do we engage our essential workers who are grocery workers? Well, we provide them free PPE. We incentivize or say this is what and how you can get access to the vaccine and or testing if that's what you need. And then recognizing that culturally, with Latinos, and I would like to say that even within African American and Filipino households, family is extremely important. We like the convivir, the come together. And it's recognizing that culturally, it takes getting the trusted elder or the trusted cousin to buy into the medical processes that we're asking everyone to go and get the vaccine. And it's extremely important that we do not lose sight of that as we move forward, be culturally relevant, ask those trusted leaders, make sure that we're not just expecting everybody to be on the same level, because we are not. There are, again, that digital divide is huge. I don't know how many 75 or 85-year-olds, and I can say my grandmother does not have Facebook, Twitter, or any social media. It took us calling on her behalf and making sure that she was able to get a vaccine appointment to move the needle for her. And I think that it's not a unique scenario. So there were, again, statistics that show many of the vaccines are not coming to our communities in the South Bay, in National City in particular, and yet North County has had a higher amount of vaccines. Now, I've heard that's where the medical personnel lives. Well, I would just offer that I believe that's probably like an 80-20. Let's just say maybe a certain portion of the personnel live up north, but I've got the social workers, I've got the security, I've got the front desk personnel that live in the South Bay and in National City, and they are deserved and have worked and earned and have survived this entire year through this pandemic without time off, because they are essential workers, to get in line. And so it's extremely essential that communities listen to that and help us provide those resources to our community.
Thank you for that. The other thing that the video spoke to, and obviously is central to our region, is our border. We are a cross-border, a trans-border region, and with the advent of the Biden administration, we are starting to see some changes there. But Tad, I wondered if you could help us with a question we got from one of our audience today, and I like this question. It's, what are the opportunities at the border that you think people overlook? How can we make the border more of an opportunity than something that, threatens us?
Yeah, the border story and the San Diego Tijuana stories are so intertwined. And the border story itself has always been one of opportunities, more than it's been one of threats. So we largely have a problem of perception as opposed to the reality. When we see the opportunities every day, between the miles and miles of semis that are crossing the border. I've heard anecdotally that if you added up all the semi trucks that cross the border every day in the maquiladora industry, you'd have 30 or 35 miles a day. That's a lot of cross-border commerce and trade and cooperation that's going on. You've got CBX, you've got the Otay Mesa East border crossing is going to be one of the most innovative in the entire world. And you've got this large binational cultural and economic community that if you looked at San Diego, Tijuana from a blimp, you would just see this one large metropolitan area. You wouldn't see two communities other than this line down the middle. So there's so much culture exchange, so much political collaboration, especially now that we've made a transition, the sky's the limit in terms of what we can accomplish together. We do have some things that we need to really lean in on. There are common public health issues. The Tijuana River is an issue. The railway, the desert line that goes from Tecate through the eastern part of our county needs to be rehabilitated. There are all kinds of fabulous opportunities to demonstrate what we can do together. But I mean, it's there every day. We see it every day. No matter where you live in the region, you are benefiting from, whether it's a medical device that was made in Tijuana, whether it was a TV that was made in Tijuana, designed on this side, made on that side. It's really one community. Actually, there's a book just came out. Let's see which side. They told me which side to put it on. This side. A book just came out about this issue that really details the history of how the regions grew up together, the opportunities they pursued separately and together, and what the future could hold if we really celebrate this singularity in the world. There's no other cross-border region that produces as much commerce, trade, and cultural exchange as this one.
The image of the blimp and the fact that we are one region. And I think it speaks exactly well to another question we got from a member of our audience. What are tangible things that have been done or could be done to create a sense of unity in our trans-border region? So to make that visual of the singular region really real for people. Mayor Sotelo Solis, what would you say to that question?
Well, here in the city of National City, we have a sister city in Tecate. And so when we have, events, we are invited to their events. Pre-COVID, we were looking to host a number of events, some art, really engage. But one of the things that has still happened is the public safety and personnel exchange. We had some materials that we could provide, one of them being an older fire engine. We were able to provide that in kind to them because we know that they are in need. And they have needs to be met to have certain levels of safety maintained. And it's that type of relationship with their leadership and the Baja Cali region as a whole, working together with our Consul General here in San Diego, and then recognizing that truly the border is just a line, as Tad mentioned. I think that there's a perception that, oh my gosh, if you have to cross that border, and it's, do you know that there's pretty good food that you can get in line? You can pretty much buy quite a bit of items in the line to cross over. But even then, when you go, there's so many cross-border opportunities, whether it be the gastronomia, which is the food industry that is amazing, the wine tasting, there's one place that I do want to, hit up when post-COVID, Valle de Guadalupe, and being able to, again, convivir feel and share in the celebration of what is the Latino Mexicano culture, which I'm proud to have deep roots in, and have roots from, but also to recognizing that there is a true commerce, true economic development benefit to that. And again, lowering wait times, the Sentry, making sure you mentioned CBX. I think that when you are able to get people to and from their airline faster, smoother, safer, it's an attraction. And not very many people know about that. And I know that it's that well-kept secret, but I know it's going to gain in popularity. But knowing that we have to work hand in hand with our vecinos, our neighbors, because they are our family. They are descendants of many families here. So it's essential that we work as well on issues that are mutually beneficial. So water quality, and not just the effluent water, so the sewer wastewater, but how water gets into Tijuana or Baja Cali, is because water is a very essential resource. So we really need to be cognizant of how we as a nation and as a state and as a region discuss topics of water and ownership of water. The other thing is the COVID-19 pandemic. Answered a little bit earlier in the previous question, but this region is one. We know that many workers who work in San Diego County live in Tijuana. So they were crossing daily to get to work, and they are those essential workers. So if we can help provide, support, and this organization that I've been working closely with, Last Mile San Diego, has provided PPE to the Cruz Roja, the Red Cross in Baja California, to those communities that have been hardest hit, like National City, but may have even less resources than many communities here in the States. So it's essential that we talk about issues, not their side, our side, but our region and how we can strengthen each other. And those are just a few examples, again, through the Sister City program with Tecate, along with COVID-19 and addressing the issue of testing, tracing, and treatment with the vaccines. And then recognizing that water as a resource and as a very valuable life providing resource, we need to be good guardians, but also to good providers for our neighbors.
So, as I hear both of you talk, I hear these public policy issues, public health, transportation, water. And one of our questions here, I would love, Francine, for you to come in on. How do we institutionalize community engagement within local governments so that community voices are heard and respected during studies, during planning? How do we make sure, the voices of our communities are heard when these really big issues of our region are addressed?
So the first thing I would say is the person that's calling the meeting would throw away their Rolodex. We know that every industry within San Diego, they have what we call them the big five. It's the same 5 people that they call. It's the same 5 people that gets the grant for that's new. And so we want people to expand their horizon. We want them to go introduce themselves to people that they've never met. And so I'll give you an example. Yesterday, we met, the NAACP San Diego branch met the new president, CEO of the port. And we had a wonderful introductory conversation. That man is brand new, so he has to find out his way who everybody is. But of course, the people that have been at the port prior to them, they have some of their favorite people. So the names that the NAACP San Diego branch was sharing with him, the people at the port didn't even share. And so it's going to take conversations like that being had, and those people taking them to their spaces where there's other people that need to be introduced to those types of conversations. Every community has a bishop, they have a pastor, and so just talking to them and getting introduced doesn't make you a community partner. We need you to get to the people that have boots on the ground, that are answering the calls at 2 a.m. when somebody is running out of gas. And so we want to expand people's initial Rolodex to just be something brand new and transformational.
I love the sort of concrete, conversation by conversation. That's how this has to happen. I mean, we've already talked a little bit about, what the future looks like, what our vision for our region looks like. But to speak a little bit more to that, I want to play our second video. And as a reminder, again, please come into the chat. These questions that are coming in are fantastic. So we'd love some more of these questions. But right now, we'd like to show you our second video.
No one in America should work 40 hours a week, making below the poverty line. $15 gets people above the poverty line.
1 in 7 people in San Diego County turned food insecure. COVID hit, that number more than doubled. So nearly maybe 1 million people in San Diego County are turned food insecure.
We want to make sure that even though you don't have a home, you can still take care of yourself with dignity among the community. And being part of this event helps us to see that there's a need in the community, and together we can actually make our community better.
Do we want the children to come to San Diego? Are we going to love those children and protect those children? Are we going to treat them as our own? These are children. Are we going to treat them as our own?
A deadly journey to get here. They face deadly terrain, miles and miles of jagged rocks, jagged mountains, and scorpion, brown recluse spider, and rattlesnake territory. They face robbery, kidnapping, assault, rape, and murder by gangs and cartels. It's not political. Doesn't matter what your political stance is on immigration, how you feel about immigration, keeping human beings alive.
We will not repeat the mistakes of the past. We will not let the way we've always done things dictate what we do now. In this new year, we will fight for a better future. We are a big city, and it's time we started acting like one. So let's have hope. Let's rise above being fine and dare to be great. Let's build a San Diego for all of us.
Feel like I need to put in a disclaimer. We did not pay Mayor Gloria to say all of us, but it is the theme of our event here tonight. But I loved his words. We're a big city. Let's have a vision. And tonight we're talking about strengthening our democracy and making an inclusive San Diego region. So, I'd like to hear from each of you. In a few words, what would your vision of a welcoming, inclusive, strongly, democratic San Diego region look like? Tad, maybe you could get us started with that one.
Sure. Well, I can't say it better than Francine did. And Madam Mayor, you alluded to some of these things, bringing in all the voices that need to be heard. We are such a rich community, and Mayor Gloria is on the right track here. Let's bring all the voices into play and let us define what that prosperous, thriving, opportunity for all community looks like. And you asked for a few words, so I can stop there, or I have another 30 seconds, if I may. There are a lot of new ways of looking at prosperity. Over the last couple of years, it's this idea of donut economics, where you're factoring in not just gross regional product or consumer sentiment as indicators of prosperity, but how many people in your community are going hungry every day. That's a pretty good indicator, if that number is high, that your community as a whole is now prosperous. How much damage are you doing in the environment? All these kind of things that would otherwise be termed externalities. So we have a real opportunity now in this moment, in this region, to come together around ideas like that really raise every heart.
Francine, what would you like to add to that?
You know, I'm in this transformational stage, and the youth voices, they are the future, and we don't uplift the youth enough. But I want to go one step further. I completely support making sure that there's someone at every table 16 to 24, but I would also like us to consider the 26 to 34. They want to change careers. They need to be introduced to careers. So the same shadow program that we have for the youth, we need to have and build in to that structure just the next step of young adults who are at a pivotal time for themselves. And so that's what I'm looking for from our new mayor, from the entire region. I'm looking at workforce partnership. I'm looking for transformational. The things that we did yesterday, they're not going to work today. This is a different beast. This is a different climate, and we need to seize it. We need to have a sense of urgency. We need to be having intentional conversations. I had one recently with our mayor, and I truly enjoyed it. Some of our things we can agree to disagree respectfully. That's what we have to remind ourselves is Civics 101. We can agree to disagree respectfully and still work together. We can call each other next week for lunch. That's what we have to mimic and show our youth because they're missing that.
You know, it's great. I heard, you know, you talk about the youth, and one of the questions that just came in is what work have you seen or been part of that will get closer to this vision? So that work with youth is, and that workforce partnership work is sort of one concrete thing. Mayor Sotelo Solis, talk about your vision for your city, for the region.
Yeah, well, I would say it's about the humanity, about the person and the people. I heard earlier, you know, when the elected officials get into the office, you know, they lose sight of who they serve. And I'm the oldest of 5, so I have the luxury of my siblings reminding me every day who they serve. So that never goes beyond me, but or gets lost on me. But I have to share that we have to continue making the connection and really letting people know that if we ask their opinion, we want it because we want to implement it, not just put it in a report, on a shelf that's going to be there for someone else to read 20 years on down the line or use as a doorstop. I would say the other component is recognizing that each generation of our community has value. So I think as we talk about in our community, the age-friendly initiatives, and I've labeled it from twinkle to wrinkle and everything in between, we need to know that we stand on the shoulders of our elders. And there's a history and there is knowledge that we should soak up, acknowledge, and see what those best management practices were, what we can take from there. And even as Francine mentioned, you know, our youth engaging the working professional, engaging the young adults, and making sure that people feel that they are part of the decision-making process. And I think that recognizing too that San Diego County, we have 18 cities, 1 county. So we're all very, very, very diverse in our constituencies, but pollution doesn't stop at my border. Homelessness or the unsheltered, concerns around housing security doesn't stop at my 91950 border. Food insecurity does not stop at my border. And so, or, you know, you could put a number of different topics in there. So as we talk about what we want for our democracy, we have to look at it bigger, you know, focus in on our communities first, but recognize that it will have touch points beyond our, for me, the 91950 zip code, and really be intentional about that. Have people at the table. And I was mentioned earlier, you know, knowing who the gatekeepers are, knowing who makes the appointments, knowing who, like in the city of National City, there are mayoral appointments to certain boards and commissions, and there are city council and mayor appointments to boards and commissions. So it's recognizing all of these little nuances and that there are varied levels of leadership from the city to the county. And if we go to water boards, school boards, all of these intimate parts that all play part of our democracy, again, that government aspect of it. But we all want to hear your voice because every aspect of your life is impacted by one of those boards or commissions.
Let me ask a follow-up question to you. One of the programs we have here at the Kroc Institute, we work with mayors from all around the world. So here in the US and all around the world. And one thing we often hear is, they get in the mayor's chair and they see all these constraints, and it's harder to get things done maybe than they would have thought. So, if I could grant you one magic wish and you could, snap your fingers and get one thing done for National City in regard to sort of strengthening and making a more inclusive democracy, what would that one thing be?
Only one wish, huh?
Yeah.
I will use my wish wisely. I would think it would be to continue to engage my community in the best way that they deem possible. So if I could help them feel validated, because there's such a diversity of opinions and perspectives. I think that in National City, one of the challenges is that not everybody feels like they are seen through our municipality. And I would love to continue engaging my community. The one wish, would be to have more staff. I have one person, and that's my staffer, Nancy, who is amazing, my right hand. And recognizing that unlike other cities, they have maybe 3, 4, 10, 15 staff members. So as a smaller city, my bandwidth is fairly small or thin, should I say, but I stretch it as far as I can and as much as I can to get my perspective and hear the perspective of the community. So it would be more staff, more engagement, and making sure that people feel, again, in their language, whether it be English, Spanish, Tagalog, or otherwise, that they know that this position, regardless of who is here, it's essential that they know that they're wanted.
That's great. I want to direct this at you, Tad, and you'll see why in a sec. My boss, the dean of the Kroc School here, Patricia Marquez, often says, you can't solve new problems with the same old solutions. And you've just recently started your organization, the Burnham Center for Community Advancement. On the website, you also talk about new solutions. And so I wanted to ask you, what new solutions are you excited about, have caught your eye recently?
Yeah, it's both a scary time and an exciting time in our community and around the country, because we do have to find new ways to get this done. And both Francine and the mayor have articulated some of these. It's really about bringing voices to the fore that perhaps weren't previously there, and pushing the extremes to the side. So if you look at national politics, you're starting to see some trends towards the middle and towards a moderated voice. You're starting to, I know in our region, I'm starting to feel this hunger for a more rational discussion that focuses on issues rather than personalities or politics. I'm starting to feel this momentum towards, we've got to solve some problems, and we've got to bring everybody together, at least the people that want to solve problems, to get that done. So in Congress, and in fact, one of our local representatives, Scott Peters, is a member of the Problem Solving Caucus. And they have a system where they vote as a block as long as a certain percentage of them agree on a solution. And it's very powerful in Congress. You look at some of the collaborations that are starting to bubble up, and some of the conversations that are starting to bubble up around maybe it's even a third party or different kinds of primary elections. So So I really am seeing culturally a yearning for a new way of doing things. And that's part of why we set up the Burnham Center. People have lost a sense of community, and we're here to help rebuild that fabric, at least help provide a platform to rebuild that fabric in kind of the way that Francine was talking about, bringing new voices to the fore, bringing old voices to the fore, making sure both of those voices are heard, and that we can go to lunch after we've disagreed. So I mean, we're seeing this opportunity in the moment. You know, never let a good crisis go to waste, and we'd like to offer this to the community. So I'm feeling a cultural moment, and it's apropos to both of the videos that you showed, where there's all this flame throwing, and there's a desire to come together around solving real community level problems in a meaningful way that supports community fabric.
You know, one of the things I really like about the Kroc School and having these events is our community, our Kroc School community. There's a real hunger to be part of solutions. And, you know, I'm sure, you know, the folks that are listening right now, and just I think, as you said, Tad, there's a hunger to sort of be part of the solution. And so this kind of last question I wanted to ask you, it actually sort of, there's a couple questions that have come in that I think relate to this. So one of them is, how can we, members of the audience, support some of the initiatives that have been mentioned tonight in order to create more inclusive democracy here? And there was another question as well that was, you know, Francine, you talked about, you know, what the port director needs to do to be more inclusive in terms of who they talk to. What this person was asking, hey, if I'm a member of the community, what's the best way for me to start to get involved, for me to start to get my voice heard? So, you know, maybe we could start there, Francine, as in kind of like concrete advice. I'm a member of the community, I'm passionate. You know, what are the ways I can start to sort of make my voice heard or make my block's voice heard?
Well, I would say to that person that you can go to the NAACP San Diego branch website, and you could see what committee drives your passion. We're celebrating 102 years here in San Diego, and we have various committees from health, criminal justice. We have an AXO program for youth. We have economic justice committees. And so it's all about finding an organization that best suits you. There's numerous organizations throughout San Diego County to get involved in. And so I would say that you would go to our website and you could see the different interests, but also look at your city where you're in. Everyone has a different council district, and you may decide that you want to join one of your council districts committees. So there's a park and rec board there at your, once we get through the purple tier and Dr. Wooten says that our parks can open up fully, the best thing is to get involved in your community. There's neighborhood councils, there's planning groups. So anything is possible for you to go and learn and just observe first. And then if you decide that this is something for you, put in the paperwork and put your interest form in and let them know that you want to become a voting member. Nothing is ever too small. Any idea can be created on different organizations throughout their committees.
Mayor Sotelo-Solis, maybe you could speak as well. Just, you know, what are some concrete things? And I love the sort of concreteness of what Francine was talking about, you know, like just go look at the website, get involved. What are some things that you might say to our audience or community members that want to be part of the solution?
So one, I will take up Francine. I need my application for the membership. That one. But it's also two, we know we have access to social media. Everybody has their phone and has access to various platforms. At least those that have access to that. So I would say follow a page, follow somebody on social media that aligns with your core values. And how you do that is by joining the platform. And Twitter, you can see people who have those, again, those same ideas and values. I would say follow a page on Facebook. Various organizations and even elected officials have those pages, and they highlight certain policies that they may be spearheading. Nonprofits offer opportunities, whether it be for you or community members that you may know. So those are two very important things via social media. But I would also say attend a public meeting. Go to your city council. Find out. And right now, everybody's virtual. So with the comfort of your own sofa, you can actually, you don't even have to change. You can be there at a council meeting and provide public comment. Share what your perspective is. If it's a decision on a street improvement that's going to be right in front of your home, give your comment. You have up to 3 minutes. And I tell youth that come to and take tours pre-COVID, of course, that they have 3 minutes to tell us anything they want during the first part of the non-agenda public comment portion. Did you know that? 3 minutes. That is basically your taxpayer dollars being given back to you, in the sense that you can invite me to a birthday party, you can tell us about what's going right, or you can tell us what things we need to improve. Again, that it not be on the agenda, of course, but feel empowered to do that. And it may be scary at first. You may not have maybe the right words, but as you feel more comfortable, as you feel more engaged, and that the decisions will, have at least heard your perspective, and maybe you influence the decision making. It's those very simple things, again, with engaging with the council, and then searching what boards and commissions are available. Here at the city's website, we have the vacancies that are open on our webpage, and you can click on the various appointments that are available. And, it just takes a little bit more, but we're already on the computer, some of us at 2, 3 in the morning. So why not look up a favorite elected official website, follow them on their social media platform.
I love the kind of no excuses. It's like, it's right, like both of you are saying that, it's right there for you. If you want to get involved, well, okay, like here are some real, and I love it that it's like small places to start, just to sort of get in. Tad, I wanted to follow up with what you said about a little bit of this sort of cultural shift toward the center. And, a lot of people I talk to, I think, are trying to figure out what they can do to strengthen, the center in a way that doesn't ignore our problems, in a way that's authentic, and that really, will help us solve some of these problems we've talked about tonight. So, I don't want to put you on the spot, but like, what are some ideas you might have for people who want to sort of strengthen that center?
Yeah, and when I say center, I don't mean to exclude serious leftward thinking folks or rightward thinking folks. It's really about problem solving. And as I mentioned before, it's about politics is separate from problem solving, and we need to bring them back together. So without meaning to make this into a commercial, this is the function of the Burnham Center, is to create this neutral platform for people to come together and leave the agendas at the door, come in and wrestle problems to the ground. So I'm hoping that we can create a broad-based community voice of all shapes, sizes, and colors, that out of which will emerge these co-designed, on the ground, community informed, community engaged, neighborhood level and regional level solutions. So we're a little hampered by COVID right now because we can't get together physically. But as we start to ramp up, we're going to be providing opportunities for folks to come together with the sole agenda being solving a problem. And I'm sure that the mayor and Francine and the port and the county would like to see this too. I have no doubt that all people of good faith want to see this kind of civic dialogue emerge. They aren't always capable of it in a government setting just because of the way the politics work in our day. And we've always had disinformation. We've always had malactors both within the community and from outside the community, whether it's regional, citywide, neighborhood-wide, or internationally. And social media has exacerbated that problem and made it easier for them to be effective. We need places, safe places like the Burnham Center, or if the mayor can create that in her government meetings, if the NAACP in their meetings can create those spaces in their dialogue with community members and elected representatives and appointed representatives, then we're going to be going a long way. So that's really the recipe, I think, going forward, is problem solving, not politics or personalities.
And we look forward to seeing how the center evolves, particularly, as you say, after we come out of the pandemic. It's a shame. I would love to sit and talk with you all for hours more, but we're sort of, we're at the time we have. I hope we can all get together after COVID and have this conversation in person. I think some of the things I really, really heard tonight that were fantastic was, one, we talked about the problem. Opportunity, we have a cultural opportunity. There's real hunger to look these problems straight in the face and address some of them. And I think I just heard again and again tonight, the way to do that is make sure voices are included, make sure we have collaboration across cities, across communities, across the border. That's how we're really going to solve these problems as a region. So that's kind of what I take away from tonight. So first of all, I'd like to just thank each of you. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us tonight, to give us your insights from your perspective. So much appreciated. Thank you to the audience for spending the time with us. I hope there's that one or two or three things you can take away, whether it's an idea or whether it's a plan to get involved, like was asked. It would be great if so many of us, who are listening tonight, could get involved and be part of the solution. The last thing I'll say is we have one more event in the Democracy for All of Us series coming up. It'll be March 25th. And it's really going to be an event about, how do we move through this immediate crisis to start solving big problems again. So we've had a political crisis, we've had a public health crisis, but we also have climate change. We also have other big problems we need to solve. So that event will be called Pulling Together, Democracy and Solving Big Problems. We really hope you can join us for that. We've got some great panelists lined up, and there'll be more information on that coming soon. So again, thank you from the Kroc School. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you in a month for that last event. Take care, everyone.